This is Central Texas Living with Ann Harder.
Hello, I'm Ann Harder. Welcome to Central Texas Living, the podcast. It is a joy today to welcome Waco's new police chief, Dr. Sheryl Victorian, to the podcast. It is wonderful to have you here with us. Now, you served with the Houston Police Department for 28 years.
Yes, ma'am. I was there for 28 years, had a great career. Started off as a patrol officer and worked my way up to assistant chief, where I was retired to come here.
Did you ever dream you'd be in Waco? What was it about Waco?
I never dreamed I would be in Waco, but I should have known that I was being prepared. I had a meeting here back in 2019, the summer of 2019, and it was the Texas Police Chiefs Association's Women's Leadership Board that we had just come up with, and so everybody was located across Texas. So Waco was central, so we met in Waco. Beautiful town. My sisters traveled with me. They got to see the city while I was in a meeting and hadn't been back since. And then got a call about this opportunity from one of our former union presidents in Houston, and he said that he had gotten a call and they told him that they were looking for a police chief, told him what they were looking for, and he says that I was the first person that he thought of. And he was like, have you even been looking for chief's jobs? And I was like, no, not yet, And so he said, well, I told him that I would call you. I planted the seed. The rest is up to you.
Well, so March 15th, you were sworn in.
Yes.
And what has surprised you the most about Waco?
I really haven't had a lot of surprises because I didn't come with too many expectations because I didn't know what to expect. But I tell you, I have received so much love and support from this community, from our officers and our team and our leadership across the city, that has been absolutely amazing. I have no family here. I had no friends here. And my siblings were really concerned. They were like, you're going there by yourself. And within a couple of visits, and when they saw how everyone around the city were embracing me, they were like, "You're gonna be fine." And I have been absolutely fine ever since.
Well, I know the faith community just recently had a wonderful thing, a prayer gathering of pastors. Tell me about that.
So Pastor John Durham at Highland emailed, and he was like, hey, we get a group of pastors together like every quarter or so, and we want to get together and we want to highlight you and pray for you as the new police chief of our city. And as I said before, I thought maybe 20, 30 pastors get together and pray, and I introduce myself and tell them a little bit about who I am, and it ventured into like 170 pastors, some of their wives, representatives from the police department. And it was just an absolutely phenomenal day on a Monday, just having church, because they had praise and worship and everything. So it was a great feeling. And I'm just so grateful that Pastor John and his congregation allowed that to happen.
Well, it's a great way to start off what I hope will be a very long tenure in Waco. You are also a woman of faith. So, what did that mean to you to have that?
It meant the world to me.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that email, I knew that it was exactly what I needed. And I don't know if you've heard this story, but the entire time that I was going through the process to become chief of police, my prayer was, Lord, I only want this job if it's your will. If it's not your will, I don't want it. Because I realized that, if you're in it, then you're going to take care of me. And he has been faithful. So it meant the world to me to know that I had people standing for me, standing in a gap, interceding on my behalf, people who had been praying for me that I didn't even know were praying for me. So it just means the world to me to have that support from strangers and people who've only read about me, and to just lift me up in prayer.
Mm-hmm. That confirmation.
Yes.
That's like, this is right. Well,
right.
I had the chance to meet you at a thing through the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce, the leading Waco women, and you were one of our amazing panelists. And it was just such a delight to hear you talk about empowerment, because that was what the focus was, leadership and mentoring, or the other spokes of this three-legged stool that is the Leading Waco Women series. So let's talk about the story that you shared with us, and that was how you kind of got into law enforcement. What led you to this wonderful career?
So initially, I was deathly afraid of police officers.
Oh, were you?
I was absolutely afraid of police officers. And it's not that my family had any negative interactions with the police. For some reason, I was just afraid. There was a constable who used to work at a shopping center at a store, grocery store in the neighborhood. And my mom would just take me up to try to shake his hand. And I would literally, at 4 or 5, fall out on the ground, embarrass her, crying, "Oh no!"
I was kind of like Santa Claus.
Yes.
It was that same kind of thing.
Yes, and so I would just embarrass her. God bless her. And and so and then after that, I had a neighbor who was just a mischievous kid. He was a little older than I. We had gone on vacation. I came back from vacation, and we lived at like a little T intersection on the corner. And he came by. The Houston Police Department's flight path for their helicopters used to fly directly over my mom's house. And so every hour or so, you'd see a helicopter. And so he says, "Hey, the helicopter landed on the street and they were looking for you. They asked for Sheryl, and they asked if she was a Taurus." And then that should have gave it away. But I was a kid. I didn't know police officers didn't ask for your sign. And and I'm like, oh my goodness, no. So every time when my friends and I were outside playing, every time that helicopter would pass over, I'd order them to go hide, because I thought they were looking for me. So after a couple of years.
But you hadn't done anything wrong.
I hadn't done anything. And so the fact that, they knew I was a Taurus, that was a big deal. I don't know why, but it was a big deal. I lost my dad. I was 9 years old. My dad had a massive heart attack at 42.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And thank you. And so we were burying him. We were being escorted out of the city of Houston to go to the country to have his services and to bury him. And I guess with my little 9-year-old mind, just to kind of take focus off of what was really happening, I honed in on the motorcycle officers, the escort officers, and the way that they, showed compassion to my family and I as we exited out of the building. And then the amount of respect that they got from the community as they led us outside of, the city limits, and people pulling over and I just focused on them. And I was like, those are good guys. And, through the years, my mind started changing about policing, and then all of a sudden Miami Vice came on.
Miami Vice. All right.
Came on, and Ricardo and Tubbs and the undercover and, the glamour of it all. And I was sold. Yeah. And so one of my high school classmates, she's a vice mayor pro tem in Houston now, and she says, you always wanted to be the police because you would come to school dressed like Ricardo and Tubbs. You'd have on your jeans, you'd have on your blazer. You always thought you were the police. And
sunglasses.
It happened. So I went to college, got my degree, and was passionate about going into the field, and started my career as a Houston police officer in 1993.
Yeah, your education, though, quite impressive, and in fact, have a terminal degree, as they say, a PhD from Texas Southern University, and Administration of Justice.
Yeah.
Why did you feel the need to get a doctorate?
So, when I was an undergrad at Texas Southern University, I was just really passionate about going into the field of law enforcement. We had a lot of theoretical things thrown at us, not a lot of practical experience from those teaching, the courses. And I always liked teaching, and I was like, I think I can stand in front of the room and do this, but I'm gonna be a police officer first.
Right.
So I always wanted to bring that practical experience and that theoretical knowledge to the table and in front of the classroom, and to, just be able to bring real life things to our students, because I was disappointed in, what I was seeing and what I was hearing, but I had that passion and I knew this was what I wanted to do. So I completed the program and went on and earned my master's degree from the University of Houston downtown. And when I got the opportunity to go back to school, and Texas Southern University was offering a PhD in administration of justice, I looked into it and just felt like that was my opportunity and took advantage of that opportunity. And, it also helped, too, with promotional exams. The more education you have when you're promoting, you get an extra point for each degree. So it's a very competitive process in Houston. So for the commander's exam, that added 3 points to my final score, which dropped me ahead 6 persons.
I'll bet it did.
Yeah, so
I'll bet it did.
yeah.
I just can't imagine there'll be a lot of PhDs on the police force, but it is an honor to have you here in Waco for sure. When we were talking on the panel, and we were hearing from the women, different walks of life, different experiences, different businesses that they were in, but kind of the focus being empowerment. And I think one of the things was, when did you not feel empowered, and how did you overcome that, and then how do you help your fellow, colleagues and subordinates in this case feel empowered?
When have I not felt empowered? I would say that when, and I know that many people have heard of the imposter syndrome, right? So when you're around the table and you don't feel like you have the knowledge to be around the table, or to contribute to the conversation or the decisions that are being made, that has been a time where I felt less empowered. But with that, I would leave from those situations and empower myself, and talk to other women about how I felt, and then learning that the imposter syndrome was a thing and that there was no reason why I should feel that way, particularly being a female in a male-dominated profession. Females only make up 12% of the total number of police officers across this country. And then as far as chiefs or sheriffs, we only make up 3%. And then African American females make up, I'm sure, less than half of 1%. So I had to equip myself and better equip myself to feel confident that I belong around that table, that I had stuff to contribute, and to bring others up. I tell them that story, and let them know that everything that they need is inside of them.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think needs your immediate attention here in Waco in this department?
So what I've seen so far is this increase, not that this was not happening in Houston, but there has been an increase in the number of violent crimes that we have had perpetrated by youth and young people. Yeah. And it's extremely frightening for a city this size, and for young people to be involved in the types of crimes, murders, aggravated assaults, deadly conduct, incidents involving weapons. So that is one of my primary focuses right now. I had a conversation yesterday with the director of GL Wiley, and he had his staff on the phone, and we were trying to come up, let's brainstorm, let's come up with some ideas on how we can best address this population and, use some prevention and intervention strategies to reduce the number of incidents that we're having with our young people.
I guess we've all, always been concerned about gang issues, as bad as, they've been, or this is just random kids, just more violent.
And when I talk to my team and talk to my staff, they say that this is something that has been happening.
Yeah.
Has been happening.
Sure.
But the fact that, again, this is the city of Waco. It's a smaller city. There seems to be increases. It may have been spread out, but to me, in a short period of time, burying young people and knowing that there were other young people who committed those crimes is very disturbing. And I know it's not just disturbing to me as a police chief, but as a resident of the city of Waco.
Right.
And so it's got to be a concern to our residents as well. So it's just something that's on our list, to try to come up with some prevention and intervention strategies to reduce this number of incidents. So
what kinds of things are there? What kinds of interventions are you envisioning?
So, like I said yesterday, our conversation with Mr. Larry and his team, we were talking about having workshops and the police being involved in some of those workshops at their school and talking to these kids And it's really a community approach. It's going to take, it's not a police, once it becomes a police issue, usually the crime has already been committed, right? But we want to show on the front end that we care about their individual well-being, their future, their hopes and their dreams before they get into have any problems. So if we can be involved in some of these workshops, where it's anger management, bullying, just developing social skills, just as a community, then I think that will be helpful. And another thing that I would like to see is for us to find organizations that can help parents with parental issues, with kids that may have gotten out of control. How do we get a hold of that, or how do we identify this before it becomes a problem? So those are a few of the things that we discussed. And hopefully we'll get some other people on board and start growing this idea and be able to implement something in the fall.
Okay, so you're shooting for
Yes.
the fall, and get of course the summer months,
Yeah.
can be idle hands and all that sort of thing.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, want to get a little bit more from you about some of your goals for the Waco Police Department, and talk about you being a playwright. So we'll be right back.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Jasmine with the New Black Collective.
And what's up? It's Davey R from Change Waco.
Don't forget to subscribe to Stories of the Streets, where we'll be here every other week, bringing you expert stories and also stories from local Wacoans.
Stories of the Streets is in association with the New Black Collective, Change Waco, and Rogue Media. Tell your friends, tell your family, shout out to the streets, tune in as much as y'all can.
And we're happy to be back with Dr. Chief Sheryl Victorian, who is the new Waco Police Chief. And it's a delight to have you here with us to share some of your thoughts about policing. And law enforcement is under attack. I mean, and for me, that's one of the most horrifying things that I've seen, where police officers are ambushed. They can be seemingly berated by people. I mean, it's just your thoughts on where we are right now. And are you seeing this same kind of attitude in Waco, or maybe is it a little bit better? I don't know.
Waco has been absolutely phenomenal to our law enforcement community. Do we have some communities that still mistrust the police? Absolutely. And one of my primary priorities is to increase the number of positive interactions that we're having with our communities, because when you see the police, most times it's because something devastating has happened. You've been victimized, or somebody has been hurt.
Or maybe you were driving with a lead foot.
Or you were driving with a lead foot.
See those lights.
And so one of my priorities is to make sure that we increase the number of positive interactions that we have with our community. But the community of Waco so far has been very supportive of the police, even before I got here, and would ride around and see the thin blue line flags of people, in houses where there were not police officers. I knew that we had that support. And that was one of the things that when I was doing my research on the city, just as, the leadership in this city was being intentional about who they wanted, I wanted to make sure this was a place that I wanted to be. So I started calling strangers. I got one stranger on the phone, and he, that person connected me with somebody else. And I talked to 9 or 10 people before I got here that didn't even know me, but were willing to talk to me about this city and the police department. And I was very encouraged by what I heard.
Really? That's good.
Yes, ma'am.
That is
yes,
good.
ma'am. And so that's not something that I have seen in the city of Waco. Do we have, offenders or people that we're trying to arrest who may make statements or behave a certain way? Yes. But the overwhelming majority of our citizens treat us with respect and allow us to do the job that we have taken an oath to do. But yes, across the country, we have seen many issues with citizens mistrusting and delegitimizing what many of us have taken an oath to do. And it's disturbing, but I think that it's an opportunity. Many people look at it as a challenge. I think it's an opportunity. I was absolutely appalled with the murder of George Floyd. I saw that the day after it happened, and when I'm watching this video, I'm telling myself, this is not happening. When was this? This is not just. And when I found out, that it was actually something that had just happened the day before, as an African American female and a police officer, I cried because I knew exactly what that one incident was about to do to this country, and it did it. And then 3 days later, oh no, it's 2 days later because this was a Tuesday. On that Thursday night, I watched TV and then watched a police station being burned down. Yeah. And cried again. I mean, it just broke my heart. But I knew that we had a lot of work, that all the work that we thought we were doing to improve our relationships, we had just been set back. And so, once we got through the protests and everything in Houston, and we started, trying to get back to where we were and developing these relationships, having those tough conversations with our youth and, a lot of our college-age students about what they saw, what they perceived the police to be, doing a little perspective taking. I actually was instrumental in helping to develop a class in Houston called Building Trust from Trauma, where we're teaching our police officers about the historical traumas of policing and some of the roles that we had played in creating the mistrust. And so I have to explain to officers, hey, when people are treating you a certain way or disrespecting you, it's not you, the individual, it's what we represent, right? And so a lot of people, we have this generations of historical mistrust because of the civil rights movement, because, of enforcing Jim Crow laws, because of things, that have happened in the past. Right. And we make it sound like it's been so long ago, but these people, there are generations that are still with us who are teaching their kids that this stuff happened and you don't trust the police. So we have to change that perspective. And in order to do that, we have to increase the number of positive interactions we have. We have to humanize this badge and let people see that this is a profession for us, but we do still have hearts where we treat people the way we want to be treated. And that our primary responsibility is public safety, getting the bad guy off the street, and making sure we're protecting the citizens.
And you want to go home safely to your family.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Staffing, do you have all the tools you need? What are your thoughts about, we hear about some communities wanting to defund their police departments. Horrors. Right. So how are things as far as body cams, the equipment, all the things that you need for the tools? How is that here?
So the Waco Police Department has done an exceptional job with the tools needed to perform our responsibilities. Can we use extra cops? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there places, where we can see improvements if we had other police officers on the streets? Absolutely. And that's something that I'm currently working with our city manager's office and city council to see how we can best use any officers that they allow us to have to make sure that we are fulfilling the mission of our police department and of policing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I know there's a new crop of young cadets going to be graduating soon from MCC. In fact, two of them, Manny and Abraham Esqueda, had worked at KXXV.
Oh, wow.
And IT, really talented IT guys in the engineering. And they said, we both want to be police officers. And I think they've gone through the program together, and I've been invited to come to the graduation.
On June 22nd?
Yes.
I'm the keynote speaker.
And I'm planning to be there. I told them, I said, I will definitely try to be there because I'm proud of them and know what wonderful assets they will be as well to whatever police department they end up going to. So there are some fine people, obviously, that want to go into law enforcement. You're also a playwright, though. Talk about, and now for something completely different. Tell me about that aspect of your life.
So I am not a trained or learned writer. I just loved writing. As a kid, I was writing plays and probably probably talking about some topics that I probably shouldn't have been talking about at the time, relationships and that kind of thing. I when I became a member of the church that I was at for 32 years, one of the young ladies who I grew up with we used to read and exchange plays, told the pastor's wife that, hey, Sheryl writes plays, because they were looking to do a Christmas play.
Sure,
and
yeah.
so she handed me a play and she was like, hey, write this and make it fit our community, our church. I was like, okay, the pressure's on. And I did. And from that point forward, Christmas, Easter, any kind of skits we need, any women's
neat.
ministry plays, I was the one that they went to write the plays. And so I had the opportunity to write a play based on the series, the Left Behind series, called Left Back.
Yeah. Oh.
And so we put out a audition notice throughout the city of Houston. We had so many young people show up, audition for the play. We had people volunteering. A couple of dance scenes. Some professional dancers came and choreographed the scenes. And we put that play on at the Wortham Theater in downtown Houston over the course of 2 days. It was absolutely phenomenal. And then there's another one that I really love called The Wisdom of God's Women, where I've taken 27 to 30, I can't remember which number it is, of the women in the Bible, and they would either do a monologue or a dialogue. Like Eve would go out and she'd tell her story, and then at the end she'll apply a life lesson to how it's impactful. Her story is impactful to today. And then Naomi and Ruth did a dialogue telling their story, and then at the end, of course, they would do a life lesson. So I did that. It's about 20. There are at least 27 that I've done.
Wow.
And, yes, ma'am. And so
what a great way to kind of bring scriptures to life.
Yes.
And it has more impact, because then folks can really identify with those characters that they see acted out. That is amazing.
So,
that's just wonderful.
Looking forward to getting back to writing and spending some time and maybe doing one about the men of the Bible. So
very, very good.
Yes.
Well, I like to end these visits with a questionnaire. It's similar to the one the late, great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actor's Studio. And so you're looking at me puzzled, but it's very easy.
Okay.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word. One that I use frequently?
I guess, sure.
My favorite word. I would say it's compassion.
Yeah. I can see that.
I would say it's compassion.
What is your least favorite word?
Ooh, can't.
Mm-hmm.
Can't.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from my guests. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Anything, really, to be honest. I could be watching a puppy video and I'm just and I can get emotional, and then it's not just me. I would share it with my family. Look at this, how cute.
How cute is
Yesterday on Facebook, I saw two kids embrace. They couldn't have been 2 years old, and I had to share that. I mean, it's just the simple things when we're caring about others, and So
Yeah. Well, what turns you off then, spiritually or creatively or emotionally?
I would say negativity, and people who are negative or bring bad vibes into a room of optimism.
Mm-hmm. What sound do you love the most?
The ocean.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What sound do you not like?
Oh, mosquitoes buzzing in my ear. Yeah, that was an easy one.
Coming from Houston, guess what? They're just as bad here as they are in Houston. All right. What other profession would you have liked to try?
Oh, if I were not a police officer, I'd teach. I would teach.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Do you know what you would not ever want to do?
Professionally, what would I not look at somebody and go, "Ooh, no, I'm glad
I
that's
don't
you
want to
and
do
not me."
that. I'm glad you're doing it, but I don't want to do it.
Glad
Okay.
that's you and not me. Oh,
See, a lot of people say teacher.
okay. When I say that, let me clarify that. I was at the college level.
Okay.
I admire teachers. I would say, okay, I'm not a gardener.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I'm not the type of
Okay.
person to be outside.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right. Finally, what do you want to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Girl, you did that. Well done. Well done.
Oh, well, this has been a delight. Thank you
Yes,
so much, Chief Sheryl Victorian of the Waco Police Department. I hope we can visit again soon.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometime.
Thank you so
All
much
the
for
best
having
and
me.
blessings on your work. It's seems like it's gotten off to a really good start.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me.
Central Texas Living is part of the Rogue Media Network family. Be sure to check out their other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate us 5 stars on iTunes and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Living, the podcast.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.